This logo's looking pretty sweet, so let's save it as a new version. Save scene increment. This is now version 3. Let's put some surfaces on here. So we're going to open up the surface editor. And remember back in Modeler, we had created logo bevel, logo front. It actually says logo frung. So let's rename that. Let's select it. Now they both say logo bevel. So let me find out which one's which now. That is the front. So rename logo front. There we go. Okay. So we have a logo front, a logo side, and a logo bevel. What can we do with these? Well, for the front, let's do something kind of fun. Let's put a little brushed metal on here, and I'll show you how to do that. So I don't mind the blue. I actually kind of like it. But let's just make it a little cooler. So a little more to the purple gray, like that. The diffuse value, we're going to make about 70%. And then we're going to bring the specularity up, probably about 40%, as well as the gloss. I made diffuse 70% because I'm going to add about a 30% reflection. And earlier in the course, when we talked about surfaces, I talked about how diffusion and reflection should equal about 100%. But what is this reflecting? So we'll click to the Environment tab. And ray tracing and backdrop, we could just do a spherical map because there is no backdrop. It's just black. And the reflection map, we're going to load up. Just load up our tinfoil from our images folder. And now you can see that tinfoil reflected in there. And if you don't feel it's quite enough, let's go 50-50. So 50 diffuse, 50 reflection. So it reflects that image much stronger. And we'll give this a second to redraw. Now remember, we haven't lit the scene yet. Okay, but now you can see that reflection in there. So to make this a little better, let's go down here to Bump Map. And I'm going to hit the T button. This opens a texture editor for the bump map for the face of the logo. And instead of an image map, we're going to use a procedural. And turbulence is fine, and look what it does. Okay? So what we're going to do is just squeeze it down on the y-axis. Just really, really small, but not negative. Just really small. Okay? I'll let that redraw. All right, so remember, this is putting this noise right here, everything you see in this little icon right here, on that surface as a bump. So we're just squeezing it down. And then let's stretch it out on the X. Because remember, we built our object in Modeler facing the Z. We were looking down the Z axis, which is straight on at the logo. So X is left and right, and Y is up and down. And essentially what we're doing here then is just making a stretched bump. You don't have to worry about the Z. It's not going to make any difference when it's a flat bump map like this. Give this a second to redraw. Now the only other thing we need to do is just give it a little less bump. Now that we have the texture correct, we're going to come over here to texture value and make it maybe like 20%. So that way we have just a little bit of bump on the surface, and it gives you that brushed metal look. And we'll let the VPR just do its thing and update a bit. If it's too bumpy, it'll look not right. It'll look kind of fake. And just something like something's wrong with it. We want just a very subtle kind of brushed metal look over here. All right, so let me just press F9 real quick. Let's close this by saying use texture. Press F9. And let's just do a quick render. Now let's take a little bit just because of the particles, and the bump map adds a little bit. And we've not set up our camera settings as far as anti-aliasing and everything, so we'll come back to that. But just to give you an idea of what this looks like, and the anti-aliasing is going to make a big difference too. So it pretty much looks like this. Now there's still going to be anti-aliasing on there, which is going to smooth out all these little jaggies. But there's our brushed metal across the front, and you can even probably use a little less bump. You could take that value down if you wanted. So let's take the same surface and right-click on it, select copy, and let's go to the bevel, right-click and paste. But we're going to hold down the Shift key and click on the T button for bump. We don't actually need the bump map on the bevel. And then what we're going to do is make sure smoothing is on. Now the front doesn't need any beveling. The front doesn't need any smoothing. The sides, however, and the bevel do. So we'll put smoothing on. But like I had shown you much earlier in the course, this 89-degree bevel is often overkill. And let's bring it back to about 30 because we don't want it to smooth out too much into the sides. Now, I don't mind the nice bright silver bevel. That's fine. What you can do to vary it a bit is actually change the color a little, and you can change the amount of reflection. But I feel that the bevels should have a really high reflection more than the front. So let's go 30 and then 70 for the reflection. That'll give it a little bit more contrast and make it pop. See that? Plus it will not match the sides as well and the face, and give it just a little variation, just something different. But we're going to copy this by right-clicking on the bevel and going to Logo Side and right-click and paste. If I hit the right button, right-click and paste. Okay, and so by doing that, the smoothing angle copies, the amount of reflection, the color, everything else. Now for me on the sides, this is way too much. So we're going to reverse this. Let's just go 70 for the diffuse and 30 for the reflection. Then let's give it a little bit something. Let's go down here and give it a deep blue base undertone. Okay, even though it's reflecting, it still has that nice blue in there. All right, and the whole thing might be a little overkill, but hey, why not? All right, in order to save this, let's go File, Save All Objects, and that saves all those surfaces with that object, and then Command S to save the scene. So very simple, easy way to set up metallic surfaces. Lightwave is great for it, and you can see it all happening in the VPR. Let's go to the next video and set up some lights to enhance this.